please start. So you use PowerPoint?
Yeah, I'm using my PowerPoint.
Yes. Okay.
Can I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm sorry. Good evening, Professor Takeshi and Kim. So I'm Yue Yang, and my MA thesis is about the ODA program within China-Japan relation and how has Japan's ODA shaped nowadays China. So I have 7 parts for my thesis presentation. They are research background, literature review, research objectives, research questions, methodology, findings, and conclusion. So I will go over them one by one. So first is the research background. About the ODA, the Official Development Assistance, 政府開発援助. The ODA is an arm of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Japan. The goal of the office is to help developing nations with supplies, civil engineering, and other assistance. The ODA started in 1954, has provided over 221 billion US dollars to 185 nations and regions by 2003. The main institution that is managing Japanese ODA is Japan International Cooperation Agency, known as JICA. Japan began providing ODA to China in 1979, the year after 2 countries signed the bilateral treaty of peace and friendship. The assistance totaled some 3.65 trillion yen, contributing to China's economic expansion and its policy of reform and openness. From 1979 to 2013, Japan has provided 24 billion US dollars, 24 billion US dollar in loan aid and $7,796 million in grant aid, including 60,577 million in technical cooperation, a total of US 32 billion. So there's a figure I have posted here about Japanese ODA to China. And we can see the yellow one is the loan aid and the green one is the grant aid. And these 2 kinds of aid just rise over the time since 1979 and up to 2013. So the Japanese ODA to China is generally in a rising trend. And here I post some literature reviews for my research. The first one written by Pietro Mazzafello, and his idea is Japanese ODA played a fundamental role in the development of Chinese economic and social infrastructures, and it improved the FDI attracting capacity of the Chinese economy, favoring entrance of foreign capitals, and consequently boosting the economic development of China. And the second one is written by Chen Lu, Wei Wei Fan in 2014. And their opinions are that Japan's ODA accelerated the development of Chinese economy and society. And on the other hand, Japan's benefited from the rich energy sources and huge emerging market in China. And the third one is written by Maria S. Derberge in 2002. And his opinion that between 1982 and 1986, China was the single largest recipient of ODA from Japan. So all these 4 authors, they are just put the positive ideas and opinions on that the Japanese ODA really contribute to the Chinese economic rise and nowadays China's development. And here comes to my research objective. My thesis title is the ODA program within China-Japan relations. In specific, how has Japan's ODA shaped nowadays China? So here comes a research area for my thesis. which is the China's national level, especially on the economic area, how China's economy has risen by benefiting from Japan's ODA. And I'm using the quantitative research method, which collected a bunch of data and the past data from the JICA and also other experts. I did the literature review on academic articles and also having the empirical evidence from statistical data. So here in my articles, I have the chapter 3 and 4, which I will mostly introduce for this presentation. The chapter 3 focused on a case study on China-Japan Friendship Hospital in the ODA program. And the chapter 4 focused on the case study on China-Japan's environmental projects in ODA program. So here I put a table, which is my MA thesis, the content, the table of the contents for my MA thesis. I will introduce chapter 3 and 4 mostly. So my research question is that how had Japan's ODA program shaped the nowadays China? In specific, how had the ODA contributed to the economic development of China? What's the meaning and significance of Japan's ODA program to China? And what kind of role has ODA played within China-Japan relations? So to explain these 3 questions, I will do some explanation, which is on the right side. So for the first one is that in what ways the Japan's ODA had promoted the China-Japan economic relations. And the second one is how had Japan's ODA in technical cooperation contributed to China, such as the China-Japan Friendship Hospital and the environmental projects. And the third one is that why Japan's ODA could maintain a healthy and stable economic and trade relations between the two countries, and then maintain the steady development of bilateral relations. And the methodology I had used is the quantitative research method. So for the first part is a case study on ODA. I will introduce the environmental protection program and the technical cooperations, such as the China-Japan Friendship Hospital. And I'm also using the data analysis on ODA total amount, such as the grant aid, loan aid. And here the picture I post is 3 types of ODA that Japan had given to China, which are grant aid, loan aid, and technical cooperations. And here I will introduce my findings. The Japan's ODA to China and recent activities. So we have seen the history of ODA to China. Since December 1979, Japan's Prime Minister Ohira visits China and starts the first Japan's ODA to China. And we have seen in the 1980s, Japan's ODA have been solving bottlenecks to economic development. They provide those infrastructure buildings and also the establishment of the China-Japan Friendship Hospitals. And in 1990s, the ODA were used mainly dealing with new development issues, such as China's rapid urbanization, the economic infrastructure, and also the emergence of environmental problems. And entering the new century, since 2001, the ODA has been used to deal with the economic cooperations program for China. There is a shift from infrastructure construction to coastal areas to environmental protections, which I will highly focus in chapter 4 in my MA thesis, the environmental projects. And up to right now, the present, the ODA is also dealing with common issues that both countries faces. And here is also about the pollutions and the environmental issues in 2 countries. And so the ODA basically are divided into 3 types: the grant aid, the loan aid, and also the technical cooperation. So we have seen China has suffered a lot of pollution issues, the air pollution, water pollution, and these serious environmental issues are highly focused by the ODA projects, especially the Japan's environmental protection projects that have been used into multiple cities, tons of towns and countryside in China. And here I have posted a map. We have seen the cities in China. They are listed with the numbers, and these numbers are the environmental projects numbers in those cities and towns in China. We have seen tons of projects have been taken place in the middle part of China and also along with the coastal areas of China. So this location map of Japan's major environmental ODA projects in China is very important to help us better understand what's the environmental projects are really taking place and how much they help the China's cities and countryside to improve the pollution issues. And here I will give the chapter review on these 4 major chapters of my thesis. The chapter 1, I went over the historical background of Japan's ODA to China since World War II. So I firstly introduced the origin of Japan's ODA to China, the background of China at that time, and the background of Japan at that time. And then I introduced 3 types of Japan's ODA, the loan aid, which is the in aid, and also grant aid and technical cooperations. And here you guys see the pictures, which is JICA's project in China. It's similar with the previous pictures, and there are tons of technical cooperations projects, which are mainly used into the environmental protection areas and help China's cities and towns improving the environmental problems. And the chapter 2, I went over the decision-making and the implementation process of ODA to China. The first part, I went over the decision-making process of Japan's ODA to China. In specific, how Japan's ODA to China with international and domestic background, strategic intentions behind Japan's ODA to China. It covers both economic motivation and the political motivations. For the economic motivation part, it's mainly talk about the consideration of energy supply, China-Japan economic and trade development, compete with the US and Europe for the Chinese market, and promote bilateral relations through economic cooperations. And for the political motivations part, it mainly explains the maintenance of stability of China-Japan relations, expand international influence through China-Japan's cooperation, and historical and psychological factors between the decision-making phase of the ODA. And here for the implementation part is also talk about how the implementation take place on the ODA to China with the result achieved. It went through a smooth implementation of the initial stage of ODA and also with a great result achieved in the initial stage. And here comes to my important part for chapter 3. That's a case study on China-Japan Friendship Hospitals in the ODA program. So the China-Japan Friendship Hospital program, that's the technical cooperation type of ODA. Japan built this hospital to China in 1981. From 1981 to 1983, spent over 16 billion Japanese yens and also tons of equipment. And finally, this hospitals helps thousands and millions Chinese patients get rid of illness and poverty. So about the Friendship Hospital, I covered 4 parts. The first part is the introduction about the China-Japan Friendship Hospital. Second part is the overview of the project. Third one is the current situation of the project. And fourth one is the summary of the inspection. And in specific, China's friendship hospital is a symbol of the life-sustaining goodwill. The road from the barefoot doctors to modern medicine, future technical directions through joint research, and common evaluations from the experts. In my thesis, I spent a part collecting the experts, which are the doctors who worked in the friendship hospital. I collect their opinions and their comments on the importance of this China-Japan friendship hospitals and how they thought the hospital was important and significant for China's medical development back in that time. And the fourth part is a case study on China-Japan environmental projects in ODA programs. In specific, as I talked previously, it's the China-Japan environmental background. And here I mainly used three projects to illustrate my environmental projects as Japan's ODA had put the importance on China's environmental problems solving. So the first one is the Beijing Environmental Improvement Project. That's a typical ODA program belong to the Long 8. And the second one is ecological environmental construction treatment in Yangtze River of Sichuan province. That's also a Long 8 ODA. And the third one is the project on forest restoration after the earthquake in Sichuan province. And that's the technical cooperations. And in these three environmental protection ODA, I mainly discussed the third one, the forest restoration after earthquake in Sichuan province. Because in 2008, Sichuan province in China, we encountered a big earthquake and tons of families, house, and also the forest was destroyed by the earthquake. But Japan's ODA program came in and helped the Chinese government to rebuild the forest and also rebuild the homeland. So that's a very it was a very thankful behavior actions that Japanese government had done this project to China. And here I post the pictures, which you guys see the Beichuan County of Wenchuan city. The Beichuan County was the most damaged area in Wenchuan city, which is the center of the earthquake. But after the earthquake, all the forest and all the nature were destroyed. But Japan's experts and people, the technology and also this knowledge have been took place in China as a method of the ODA process. And after several years, 2 years, in 2010 and 11, we can see the nature, the forest will greatly rebuilt. It's greatly improved by the project. So thanks to Japan's ODA, environmental ODA, and also this special project in Sichuan province, and that helps China rebuild our forest and also the damaged areas. So by these four chapters, my thesis have pretty much introduced what is ODA and how ODA took place, and I give the specific examples on China-Japan's friendship hospital project and also the environmental protection projects. So, and here comes to my conclusion part, which is how had Japan's ODA program shaped nowadays China. So over the past 30 years, Japan's ODA to China has played a very important role in China's reform and open, as well as the social and economic development. From that time to the present China, has altogether obtained approximately 3.4 trillion Japanese yen loans, as well as other types of technical cooperation assistance and grant aid. So over the past 30 years, Japan is the largest donor country to China, and China is also the largest recipient country to Japan. Japan's official assistance to China stands for over 60% of all bilateral aid provided to China in all donor countries. Many large-scale construction projects that have been built or being built from Japan's yen loans or grant aid can be funded in China's provinces, autonomous regions, and municipalities. And there's no doubt that Japan's ODA to China has made a great contribution for China's social and economic development, as well as people's living level improvement. So I, as a Chinese young scholar, I hold a very high appreciation for Japan's ODA to our countries and we Chinese peoples, because in China the ODA topic were not very often brought up by our government or our leaders, and many Chinese people just took the ODA for granted, and no thanks to Japan or Japanese government. But after researching and finding the data, I was shocked that in this much content, that Japan's ODA had really helped China and rebuilt the nowadays Chinese, whatever the medicine areas, the environmental problem solving, really helped China went over the hardship and helped China went smoothly for the modernization process. So it was a really great contribution that Japan's ODA had the effect on nowadays China. So I really appreciate Japan's ODA and the ODA projects to China. So I really just express my gratitude for that. And here is my reference for the research. It's just a part of several articles I used in this presentation, but there's tons of articles and data have been collected for the really MA thesis. And thanks you guys for the listening. And I can just show you guys my research MA thesis here quickly. It contains the abstract, the table of contents, and chapter 1 is the introduction. Chapter 2 is the introduction. Chapter 2 is the methodology. Chapter 3 is the contents argument. And here in chapter 3, I contain 4 parts. For chapter 1, the historical background of Japan's ODA to China since World War II. And the second one is the second chapter is the decision-making process of Japan's ODA to China, which talks about Japan's ODA to China with international and domestic background. And the third chapter is the case study on China-Japan's Friendship Hospital in ODA program, which is the China-Japan Friendship Hospital within the technical cooperations. And the fourth one is for also the case study on China-Japan environmental projects in ODA programs. And last one is a conclusion. So I hope I can give a clear explanation on my MA thesis, and thank you guys for the listening. I will stop here. Thank you.
Yeah. 武井先生、このマイクが消してありますね。
Yes.
Hi, yes. So, Professor Kim, please ask a question.
じゃあいいですか。
日本語でもいい。
You made a very good, great job. So I think this is very interesting, presentation. So I like to ask you from, formal point of view and the, main topic. So first, you described that in these 30 years, 3.65 trillion yen was aided to China. Okay, so you mean that this is the 60%,